Yeah, absolutely. I literally had the X-ray results in about 2 days ago.
Really?
Yeah, because I've still got this rod in my back and I've got like
What?
screws.
When Simon Cowell first appeared on American television screens in 2002, he quickly became known as the judge everyone loved to hate. Most people only see the successful television personality worth hundreds of millions, but few understand the personal devastation that shaped the man behind the brutally honest critiques. How did a man who seemed to have everything lose the people who mattered most? And why does he still carry the weight of decisions he made years ago? Join us as we look back at the devastating tragedies that have marked Simon Cowell's life. The bankruptcy that nearly destroyed everything. Long before Simon Cowell became a household name, he was a struggling music executive trying to make his mark in an industry that seemed determined to crush him. In 1985, he co-founded Fanfare Records with businessman Ian Burton, and his first major success came in 1986 when he signed singer Sunita and produced So Macho, which climbed to number 2 on the UK singles chart. He bought a Porsche and started living the lifestyle he had always dreamed about. But by 1989, everything came crashing down. Fanfare Records struggled with mounting debts, and Pete Waterman put a freeze on the label's assets, actually taking Simon's beloved Porsche as compensation for unpaid royalties. Simon later admitted his own extravagant spending on credit cards had made the collapse worse. At 30 years old, he was borderline bankrupt, forced to move back in with his parents and starting over from scratch. Eric Seelig, Philip Cowell, wasn't just Simon's father. He was his hero and mentor. Eric worked as a music industry executive at EMI, and watching his father is what made Simon fall in love with the entertainment business. Their relationship went beyond typical father-son bonds, and Eric's guidance helped Simon navigate the music industry after his bankruptcy. Throughout the 90s, Simon rebuilt his career at BMG Records, finding success with acts like Robson and Jerome and Westlife. Through it all, Eric remained his sounding board. In 1999, everything changed when Eric suffered a massive heart attack and passed away unexpectedly. Simon was absolutely devastated, later saying he would have gladly traded everything he had achieved to keep his father around. The pain hit Simon so hard that it fundamentally altered his personality. In interviews decades later, he breaks down while talking about Eric, admitting he still looks to his father for guidance. "Losing both my parents was the hardest thing that ever happened to me," Simon confessed, calling them his best friends. After Eric's death, Simon became what he described as a ridiculous workaholic who used his career to avoid crushing grief. While Simon buried himself in work, his personal life was about to become even more complicated. The relationship patterns that left a trail of broken hearts. Simon Cowell's love life has always been very messy and complicated. His longest relationship was with a singer named Sunita Malone. They started dating in the 1980s and were on and off for almost 20 years. Their connection was very strong, but it was also filled with many breakups, jealousy, and Simon's habit of cheating whenever he saw someone attractive. Sunita really wanted to have children, but Simon was very clear that he never wanted to be a dad or get married. After his relationship with Sunita, Simon started dating a British entertainment reporter named Terry Seymour. They were together from 2002 until 2008. A biographer named Tom Bauer said that Simon cheated on Terry many times because he got tired of their relationship. When they decided to break up, Simon bought Terry a fancy mansion in Los Angeles. Surprisingly, even after they broke up, Terry continued to live in Simon's house for 3 more years. In 2010, Simon Cowell got engaged to a makeup artist named Mejgan Husseini, but they broke up within just a year. After they ended their relationship, Simon said that it was a big mistake. To show he was sorry, he bought her a really expensive mansion worth millions of dollars as a gift for their breakup. It seems that giving fancy gifts is how Simon Cowell says sorry when things go wrong in his relationships. However, the most talked about relationship in Simon's life was still ahead, and this one would cause a huge scandal that surprised even the people who believed they understood him the best. The affair that destroyed friendships and created family. In 2004, Simon Cowell took his usual vacation to Barbados. That's where he first met Lauren Silverman. It seemed like a simple introduction at the time, but there was a complication right from the start. Lauren wasn't single. She was married to Andrew Silverman, and Andrew wasn't just anyone to Simon. He was actually Simon's friend, which made the whole situation messy from the beginning. During these tropical getaways, something else happened. Lauren became close with Sunita, another person in Simon's circle who often joined these vacations. They built what seemed like a genuine friendship. The three of them spent time together, formed bonds, and created memories. Nobody could have predicted how dramatically these relationships would eventually unravel. The rumors started around 2012. People began talking about Simon and Lauren. Rumors floated around suggesting they were having an affair, that something romantic was happening behind closed doors. Both Simon and Lauren pushed back hard against these claims. They insisted nothing inappropriate was going on. They denied everything. For a while, that seemed to be the end of it. Then came July 2013, and everything exploded into public view. The news broke that Lauren was pregnant and Simon was the father. This wasn't speculation anymore. This was real, confirmed, undeniable. The revelation sent shockwaves through everyone involved. Andrew Silverman responded quickly. He filed for divorce from Lauren, and he didn't mince words about why. In the legal papers, he cited adultery as the reason for ending their marriage. He specifically named Simon Cowell as the other person involved in the affair. The friendship between Andrew and Simon was destroyed. The marriage between Andrew and Lauren was over, and the fallout was just beginning. Sunita felt completely blindsided by all of this. Remember, she had become genuinely close with Lauren over those years of vacations together. They had shared confidences, built trust, and formed what she thought was a real friendship. Now she discovered that Lauren had been involved with Simon, someone Sunita herself had deep feelings for and a long history with. The betrayal cut deep. Sunita opened up about how difficult the situation was for her. "Lauren and I were really good friends," she explained, her hurt evident in her words. She talked about what it feels like when your best friend ends up dating someone you love. It's a painful, complicated situation that never looks good, no matter how you try to frame it or understand it. There's no way to make that scenario comfortable for anyone involved. On February 14th, 2014, Valentine's Day, Lauren gave birth to a baby boy.
I held him within 5 minutes of him being born.
Are you surprised by the love you feel for baby Eric?
I actually said to Lauren beforehand, what if I liked the dogs more than him?
They named him Eric Philip Cowell, choosing the name Eric in honor of Simon's late father. This wasn't just any birth announcement. This was a life-changing moment for a man who had spent years publicly stating he would never have children, that fatherhood wasn't for him, and that he was perfectly content without kids in his life. But Eric changed absolutely everything. Simon himself has talked openly about this transformation. "It changed everything in my life," he said, reflecting on becoming a father. "The impact went even deeper than just taking on a new role. It made me feel happy again," he admitted. This happiness wasn't just about general contentment. Simon had been struggling emotionally for a long time, dealing with the grief of losing both of his parents. He'd been in what he described as a dark place, stuck in sadness that seemed impossible to escape. His son Eric somehow pulled him out of that darkness and gave him a reason to feel joy again. As time passed, Simon and Lauren tried to mend some of the broken relationships around them. They reached out to Sunita with an olive branch, a gesture meant to heal some of the hurt and betrayal. They asked her to become Eric's godmother. It was a peace offering, an acknowledgement of their shared history and an attempt to bring Sunita back into their lives in a meaningful way. Sunita accepted the role, and while the wounds probably never fully healed, it represented a step toward moving forward for everyone involved. Yet, while Simon was discovering joy in his personal life, he was soon going to face work-related challenges that would test him in ways he had never expected before. The devastating loss of his mother and complete emotional collapse. Julie Brett was Simon's mother, and she lived a fascinating life. She worked as a ballet dancer and moved in high society circles as a socialite. But what really set Julie apart was how deeply she understood her son. She recognized early on that Simon was different from other children. He had his own way of doing things and his own perspective on the world, and Julie not only accepted this, but embraced it completely. When Simon lost his father, Eric, back in 1999, everything changed in their family dynamic. The bond between Simon and his mother grew stronger during this difficult time. They leaned on each other. Their relationship became even more significant and meaningful than it had been before. Julie became not just a mother, but also Simon's closest confidant and biggest supporter. Fast forward to 2014, and something wonderful happened. Simon's son was born, and they named him Eric after Simon's late father. This brought immense joy to Julie's life. She was absolutely thrilled to meet her grandson and watch this new chapter unfold. Seeing Simon step into the role of fatherhood meant everything to her. She got to witness how he cared for his child, how he navigated parenthood, and how the family legacy continued through this new generation. But happiness can be fragile. Just a little over a year after Eric was born, tragedy struck the family again. In July 2015, Julie passed away. She was 89 years old and had lived a full life. But her death still came as a devastating blow. For Simon, this loss cut incredibly deep. He had already lost his father years earlier, and now his mother was gone too. Julie had been such an important presence in his life, someone who truly understood him in ways few others could. Losing her left a void that would be impossible to fill. The loss made Simon feel like he was going down a dark path. "I lost everyone, you know. I've lost my parents," he shared. "It feels final now. Everything just felt meaningless at that time." Simon confessed that he was very unhappy, gaining weight and eating unhealthy food as he dealt with his sadness. He struggled to cope with his grief, feeling overwhelmed and lost. Additionally, Simon had to keep showing up on television, putting on a brave face for the public, while he felt like he was suffering deeply inside. This feeling of sadness lasted for many years, and during his darkest moments, he felt so hopeless that he wouldn't have minded if a bus hit him. His son Eric was the only reason Simon continued to push through. Seeing Eric explore and learn about the world brought back memories of Simon's own childhood. When asked if Eric was the one who saved him, Simon replied, "Absolutely. I had reached a stage in my life where nothing seemed to matter anymore." But even as Simon climbed out of depression, another tragedy was waiting, one that would nearly cost him his life. The accident that almost left him paralyzed. In August 2020, Simon decided to try out his new electric bike in the courtyard of his home in Malibu. He had no idea that in just a few seconds, everything in his life would change dramatically. While riding, he lost his balance and fell down hard onto the ground. Later, Simon recalled, "The moment I hit the ground, I knew I had broken my back." He described the experience as very sudden and extremely painful. The X-rays showed that he had broken his back in 3 different spots and almost completely shattered his spine, which could have caused him to be paralyzed for life. Simon had to have emergency surgery that lasted 6 hours, during which the doctors put a metal rod and screws into his spine to help fix it. The recovery process was extremely painful and difficult, leaving him unable to move and suffering from pain that was incredibly intense and beyond what anyone could imagine. Simon was unable to attend any more Got Talent shows for the remainder of the season. However, he tackled his rehabilitation with strong determination, making a promise to himself that he would become healthier and fitter than he had been before. Then, 18 months later, in February 2022, he had another accident while riding an e-bike in London, which resulted in him breaking his arm. These 2 accidents made Simon face the reality of his own mortality and the fragility of life. However, even though he had gone through these life-threatening situations, nothing could truly prepare him for the heartbreak of seeing the talented performers he had found and supported leave this world much earlier than anyone expected. Nightbird and the Golden Buzzer that still breaks his heart. In the summer of 2021, Jane Marchevsky, who performed under the name Nightbird, stepped onto the stage of America's Got Talent. She was carrying a very serious diagnosis of terminal cancer. The cancer had spread to her lungs, spine, and liver, which made her situation very dire. Doctors told her that she only had a 2% chance of surviving this illness. Despite this, she bravely sang her original song titled "It's Okay." As she performed, everyone in the room was moved to tears, including Simon, who was deeply affected by her story and her talent. Simon pressed his golden buzzer, and Nightbird quickly became very popular. However, away from the cameras, Simon and Nightbird formed a genuine friendship. She came to his home, and they discussed music and her battle with cancer. Simon noticed how strong-willed she was in her fight against the disease. As Nightbird's health got worse, she decided to leave the competition before the live shows began. Sadly, on February 19, 2022, at the young age of 31, she passed away after fighting cancer. Simon expressed his feelings, saying, "That was really hard. It truly was." He added, "In moments like that, you always hope for a miracle. It feels so unfair. It affected all of us deeply." Years later, Simon still thinks that pressing the golden buzzer for Nightbird is his favorite moment ever from the show. When the Mzansi Youth Choir came to audition with their version of "It's Okay," Simon started crying again, feeling very emotional. However, Nightbird's death was only the start of a sad trend that continued to unfold. Nolan Neal and the addiction crisis that took too many. When Nolan Neal tried out for America's Got Talent in 2020, he openly shared his past problems with addiction. The musician from Nashville told the judges that he had been free from hard drugs for 15 years, but he had a setback after his time on The Voice. His original song called Lost was the very first song he wrote after he became sober again. Neal struggled with addiction for most of his adult life. He shared his story on Patreon, where he mentioned that he had been free from heroin for 10 years and clean from all substances for 14 months. He wanted to use his experience to support others who were facing similar challenges. Sadly, on July 18, 2022, Neal was found dead in his apartment in Nashville after his mother called the police to check on him. He was just 41 years old. Sadly, this has occurred far too often over the years, Simon expressed. People who left us too early. Each time it happens, it is terrible. In that moment, it feels like, what can I possibly say? It has happened far too many times, and every time it occurs, it is difficult. In 2010, 5 young people came together on a show called The X Factor UK. Simon believed they had the potential to be something really special. The group was made up of Harry Styles, Niall Horan, Liam Payne, Louis Tomlinson, and Zayn Malik, and they became famous as One Direction. Even though they finished in third place, Simon quickly signed them to his record label, which is called Psycho Records. After that, they achieved great success, selling over 70 million records worldwide. Their music reached fans in many different countries, and they became one of the biggest boy bands in history. Liam tried out for the show 2 times, first when he was 14, and Simon told him it wasn't his time yet. Then at 16, he became a member of One Direction. In 2023, Liam went to Simon's house, not for work, but just to chat. They talked about their experiences together, and Liam shared about being a father. Simon remembered telling him, "Music is not everything. Don't let it take over your life anymore. Find something else that you really love." On October 16, 2024, Simon was working in northern England when someone asked him to sit down. They told him that Liam Payne had fallen from a balcony on the 3rd floor in Buenos Aires. Liam was only 31 years old when he died. Simon felt very sad and broken inside. He wrote, "You never really understand how you feel about someone until something like this happens." He also said, "Liam, I am so heartbroken. I feel really sad and empty inside." Some fans blame Simon for Liam's death, suggesting he hadn't supported One Direction members after the breakup. "I don't read any of this stuff because if I did, you'd torture yourself," Simon said. "The idea that you are responsible for somebody's life 10 years after you've signed someone? You can't do that." Simon often found himself thinking, "You start to wonder, is there anything else I could have done? What might have happened to Liam if he wasn't part of the band?" When Simon talked to Liam's parents, they shared that Liam was proud of all he had accomplished. "I wish I could go back in time," Simon expressed. "When I had that conversation with him that day, I felt really positive about him." However, the sorrow that affects us the most is not always the one that gets the most attention in the news. The realization that time doesn't heal all wounds. If you ask Simon what the toughest challenge he has ever faced is, he won't mention bankruptcy or accidents. Instead, he will explain that it is the growing number of losses that keep adding up, the way every death brings back old pain, and the awful realization that the people you care about can vanish in a moment while you are unable to do anything to prevent it. "After the last 3 years, it's been tough," Simon has said. "And then, you think everything's okay and then something hits you and it's hard." The deaths of Nightbird, Nolan Neal, Liam Payne and others taught Simon that no amount of money or fame protects you from loss. People claim time heals all wounds, but Simon knows it's more complicated. Everyone says, when you lose them, in time, it'll get better. You think, no, it won't. The truth is, it does, as long as you believe their presence is still there, with you. He still talks to his father Eric, seeking guidance 25 years later. He carries his mother Julie with him daily. He thinks about Liam and Nightbird and all the others gone, but not forgotten. The tragedies have fundamentally changed Simon. The man once known for harsh criticisms now openly discusses depression, grief, and mental health. He hugs Eric a little tighter, understanding nothing is guaranteed. "What I've learned from this," Simon reflected, "is that you take every day as it is and try to stay positive, try to stay healthy. You're never prepared for these days." At 66, Simon has more money than he could spend in 10 lifetimes, a beautiful family, and a dream career. But he also carries scars money can't heal and losses success can't undo. The tragedy of Simon Cowell isn't one story. It's a collection of moments when life reminded him that control is an illusion, and even the most powerful people are helpless against forces that take away those they care about most. Which of these tragedies affected you the most? Do you think the intense pressure and scrutiny that comes with fame contributed to some of the losses Simon has faced? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.